course, is Vladimir Putin. And tonight, in an at times combative interview, he responds to the charges made by the special counsel against Russians accused of trying to upend the 2016 election. In the coming days, Mr. Putin himself is up for re-election, and it is clear he's trying to burnish his tough guy image. As I arrived in Russia, I was immediately reminded the Russian-American relationship is as cold as Moscow in March, colder than it's been in a long time. Inside the Kremlin, you can't miss the splendor of Russia's storied past, and Vladimir Putin is determined to lead his country back to its days of glory. He is projecting power with new, supposedly invincible nuclear weapons, symbols that marked our dangerous Cold War standoff. When I spoke with him last June in St. Petersburg, President Putin denied attacking American democracy, despite the findings of our American intelligence agencies. This time, armed with new evidence, I went back to confront him. So the last time we met, in June, I asked you about the conclusion of our American intelligence agencies that Russia interfered in our presidential election. You told me that there was nothing specific in these reports. That if there's anything specific, you said, then there will be something to discuss. You told me, as they used to say in the KGB, addresses, houses, names. Since then, 13 Russians and 3 Russian-owned companies have been indicted by a special prosecutor named Robert Mueller in the United States for interfering in our election. The Internet Research Agency, Yevgeny Prigozhin and others running a cyber warfare operation out of an office at 55 Savashkina Street, St. Petersburg, Russia. Addresses, houses, names. So can we have that discussion now?
Of course. Not only can we, but it seems to me that if this particular subject continues to trouble you, we actually should talk about it.
Why would you allow an attack like this on the United States?
Why have you decided the Russian authorities, myself included, gave anybody permission to do this? Nothing has changed since you and I talked last time in St. Petersburg. Some names have popped up. So what? They could just as easily have been the names of some Americans who are sitting here and interfering in your own political process.
But it wasn't Americans, it was Russians. And it was hundreds of people, a monthly budget of $1.25 million, all designed to attack the United States in a cyber warfare campaign. You're up for re-election right now. Should the Russian people be concerned that you had no idea this was going on in your own country, in your own hometown?
Listen, the world is very large and very diverse, and there is a fairly complicated relationship between the United States and the Russian Federation. And some of our people have their own opinion about this relationship. You mentioned a number of names, some individuals, and you're telling me that they're Russians. So what?
Do you condone these activities?
No. We don't encourage them and we don't order them. But what I'm saying is that individuals could have used certain tools in other countries. They could have sent relevant information from France, from Germany, from Asia, from Russia. What does it have to do with us?
So it wasn't the Russians.
Okay, fine, Russians. But they're not government officials. So what if they're Russians? There are 146 million Russians, so what?
So what is he doing about it? If the 13 Russian nationals plus 3 Russian companies did in fact interfere in our elections, is that okay with you?
I don't care. I couldn't care less, because they don't represent.
You couldn't care less?
They do not represent the government. I could not care less. They do not represent the interests of the Russian state. Maybe they're not even Russians. Maybe they're Ukrainians, Tatars, Jews, just with Russian citizenship. Even that needs to be checked. Maybe they have dual citizenship, or maybe a green card. Maybe it was the Americans who paid them for this work. How do you know? I don't know.
Earlier, I asked Mr. Putin if he was investigating the attack. What have you done to satisfy yourself that the 13 Russian nationals who have just been indicted, those 3 Russian companies, were not behind this? This has caused an international incident.
I know that they do not represent the Russian state, the Russian authorities.
Will you extradite them to the United States?
Never. Russia does not extradite its citizens to anyone, just like the United States. Does the United States extradite its citizens to anyone? That's for starters. Second, I do not see that they did something illegal.
Mr. Putin then tried to turn the tables on the United States.
We tell them just recently at a very high level, but you constantly interfere in our political life. Can you imagine? They don't even deny it.
You've stated explicitly you believe that America interfered in Russian elections, right?
It does so constantly.
But Russia did not interfere in America's election.
No, nor does it intend to. It's impossible to do.
Why not? Why not? Why wouldn't you?
First of all, we have our own principles, which consist of not allowing anyone to interfere in our internal affairs. And we do not get into the affairs of others. Those are our principles.
Come on. Come on. You told me just yesterday, because we were amping up our missile defense systems, you had to respond in kind with increased nuclear technology. Now you want me to believe that we attack your Russian elections and you say, we're going to take the high road.
We're not talking about missiles here. This is an entirely different area.
Cyber warfare.
This isn't any kind of cyber warfare. And we don't have the tools that you have. We don't have the global media that you have. We have only Russia today. And even that you declared.
You have cyber tools.
You keep interrupting me. That's not polite.
Polite or not, I continued to press Mr. Putin on the Russian connection. The Mueller indictment is very specific about what the Russians were doing. There is a specific email, a damning email, that is cited therein by a female Russian who appears to have been caught red-handed. She says as follows: "We had a slight crisis here at work. The FBI busted our activity. Not a joke. So I got preoccupied with covering tracks together with the colleagues. I created all these pictures and posts, and the Americans believed that it was written by their people. And now you want to sit here and say you don't have the tools to do it, that we have the market on cyber interference? That's just not true."
I don't even understand what you're talking about right now. You know, this is some sort of nonsense.
As our exchange grew more intense, I asked him about Russian corruption, chemical weapons, and Mr. Putin's personal connection to it all. Coming up, the man they call Putin's cook. Is he cooking up trouble? Some people say his real job is to do your dirty work.